What's going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing you a state of the market in stock picks for April 27th, 2023. So that sounds like something you're interested in. Consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious market. Now, something that is very interesting after hours, Meta did essentially have earnings. They did better than expected. I think they blew out expectations like by 36% or something like that. But something you have to understand is that services and a lot of companies that don't have really a lot of overhead, technology companies, are going to do very well in a recession. If you also notice that not only do service and technology companies doing very well right now, but a lot of again, restaurants are doing very well because it is very cheap entertainment, while you're seeing everything else suffer extremely bad. And so yes, there'll be winners in a recession, but majority of everything else, if you took out Meta, if you took out Microsoft, everything else was essentially almost absolute trash. And even those two that are doing very well is because expectations were so low that it looked like they did tremendously well, right? Even though we have kind of become numb and got used to this massive decline that we've seen, and something I've talked about, once it starts happening all the time, you essentially establish a new norm. So that's kind of the environment that you're dealing with right now. But with that being said, I have up here First Republic. Now, this has been ongoing talks since SVB. It's been a huge concern. They had earnings on Monday. Now, more and more news just continues to drop as FDIC and the Fed aren't essentially going to back um, First Republic anymore. First Republic has already essentially borrowed I think it's $105 billion at this point, and the Fed was pretty much like, no, we're not going to give you any more money. Like, you need to sell. That's the only way you're going to get out of this. And so it can no longer operate. And the Fed have pretty much said that they are not going to let it be a Fed run bank. They said that at this point you need to sell. So we will see what happens. That is going to be a huge concern and bring back a lot of worries on the banking side. Something you need to be very worried about, because bank runs and all those things are starting to come back. And what I keep hinting on with the banking stuff is the last thing you want is for more people to be pulling money out of these mid to small banks. And then what's going to happen is that payrolls and everything like that from a lot of these smaller companies um, are going to get hit bad. And then you're going to see that echo across everything, and more layoffs and more issues and more problems. So, again, something we really need to be paying attention to moving forward. So, at this point, between that and a lot of recession numbers, like I said, a lot of the earnings we've seen have been very recession like. With huge layoffs, Amazon's announcing more layoffs. They have earnings tomorrow after open. It's going to be huge to watch them. Again, everything leading into next week, where we're going to have Apple, we're going to have our 25-point basis move increase. Then we're going to have non-farms. So it's going to be a huge pivotal week next week that could really make us flush if we start flushing a lot this week, which I'm thinking, you really have to be careful, because the news was coming out so rapid with First Republic today that it's almost like this thing is something about ready to happen tonight. We'll wake up tomorrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if this stock is at zero tomorrow, or within the next day or two before the weekend comes. If not the weekend, and then hopefully that doesn't essentially another bank doesn't go under either. We have to understand that, again, these bank bonds are very sensitive to interest rates, and we just had another 25-point basis move, so that absolutely crushed First Republic. What other banks are out there, right? And if we get another 25-point basis move next week, you're going to see it again. And so we are very much playing with fire in a very sensitive environment, and we haven't priced in a recession yet, I don't believe, and we got a banking crisis on top of our hands. So again, if these things to play together, this thing could really come down huge, right? And so that's why I brought up First Republic here to start us off. At one point, it was not that long ago, just 171. Now it's down to $4. So banking crisis, and we'll see what happens. But that's currently where we're at. So as of right now, that's what's going on there. We'll look at, we'll bring it over to the general index. Massive selling again. Worried about banks. Like I said, we broke the support here at the 4068. So now, if we can't hold this, we'll drop down to the 4036. If we gap below that tomorrow, your next support's at the 3938. Ultimately, I do think we're going back down to 3800. As you can see on the daily here, we've been playing this range. It's not been a straight drop or a straight pop, but we slowly made our way up after a couple of days. Now, again, there's a lot of things lining up that we could potentially crash. And this is something I've been talking about. We could wake up and this thing is down 100 points and then it just starts just escalating at a rapid pace. What if more banks all of a sudden start saying they have issues? What if this weekend we get more banks and then leading into a bad Apple earnings with a 25-point basis move with bad non-farms, right? That number has been lagging, right? The jobless claims that we've gotten over the past 2 weeks have been really, really bad. When is that actually going to start showing on non-farms is the question. And when that does happen, that's when the market's going to not only reprice in a recession, but a potential bank crisis on top of it. So you have a lot of things that could escalate very quickly. So that's what you have to be very careful of, and how this thing could landslide very quickly. So as of right now, that's what we're kind of really watching. Again, if you want this to be bullish, this thing really needs to hold back over the 4069 tomorrow. If it can't, again, this thing is coming down. I really think after this break, we're headed straight down to the 38. I'm saying it can happen today. It could, with the information we have and the potential fear that is sitting there. But if it's just going to be a slow grind down, I think we're going to hit 3800. If we start getting gas to this downside, it could shear straight through this and just keep going. Again, it all depends on timing. But again, the environment we are set up could lead to a lot of fear very quickly. So just be mindful of that. Bitcoin, Ray Dalio was making some comments on this. I'm not sure if that's what caused Bitcoin to really sell off today, but it actually got obliterated at that 30K mark and just absolute dropped. Again, in my mind, this thing isn't going to decouple. It doesn't matter what market you're in. When there's fear, everything sells. Even in gold, right? People will keep gold because of recession worries. So that will remain and slowly push up, but ultimately understand that everything else will just sell off. And Ray Dalio's comments about how he'd prefer to hold gold as opposed to holding crypto, I'm not really sure why people would hold crypto. It was kind of hit the gut on that one. So we'll see if that's what it was. But nonetheless, the next couple of days are going to be very, very interesting. Gold in itself, again, holding very high recession-like gold because it's pushing up. So just keep that in mind. I do believe that is the next big mover coming. And I talked about this just a couple of days ago, just 2 days ago, beginning of this week. The recession's getting ready to get priced in. And then since soon as I said that, everything just started selling off and continuing with the banks and more bad earnings, right? UPS and everybody else are doing really bad just because Microsoft is doing good. Not everybody can work at Microsoft or at Meta, right? So nonetheless, we'll see. Again, huge gap fill for Tesla. I still think this is going to hit 140. I still think this thing can come down to 100. Again, just depends on timing and how everything plays out. Tesla's just into week one of potentially another 2 to 3 weeks of selling before it starts to consolidate before the next big earnings cycle. So we'll see how far this thing gets down. But those are my two big buys. There's 140, 100, and then if anything drop below is 100, I think is a grab. I still think it's a fantastic company. It still has a lot going for it, and developing an AI unit and everything else on top of everything. So I'm really interested in what Tesla's got. Again, I think it's just a lot of short-term selling, like it did before when Elon was selling pretty heavily before he bought Twitter. So with that being said, we'll see. Tesla broke essentially this key support here at the 160. So at this point, I think it's going to come down at least to 140. And then we'll see what goes from there. If this thing does start to creep down again, general market sentiment has to be there, I think, for this thing to start creeping back into the hundreds and potentially even lower. But at that point, everybody will be scared and everything will just start selling if we get to some kind of crash scenario. BA again, horrible earnings, more loss on production, and this thing is still just holding. Needs to break 220, hold 195. We'll wait and see. I think this thing again really needs to fill this big gap, these big massive parabolic moves that it hasn't really corrected yet, especially this particular one I keep pointing out. I think if we do crash, we'll see at least back down here to the 150 for BA. So we'll watch and see how that does play out there. JPM, again, bank showing a lot of weakness. This is one of the best banks right here. Wouldn't be surprised if this gap's down below 134 tomorrow and fills this gap. That'd be one gap filled, and then gets back down to the 123. And then ultimately fill this gap and potentially be here at the 107. I think if we do have some shorter crash, you'll see your biggest moves probably in JPM and BA. Those got some of the biggest ones. Tesla, again, I think could have a pretty big drop as well. You do have Amazon, which is reporting tomorrow. They are pretty parabolic, and they've had some really nasty earnings. Like this was a really nasty earnings here. There was a couple of really nasty earnings. So we'll see if that is the same case tomorrow. Again, holds a lot. It's not as much as Microsoft or Amazon, or Microsoft or Apple. Apple holding the most, which will be next week. So we'll see how that goes. But if they do bad, again, that's more sell pressure. Again, we only had maybe 2 or 3 good companies that have done okay or really blown through expectations, but the rest of it is really going to be suffering pretty hard. So we're going to have to see how that does play out. But so far, that is what I got. Very interesting day. We're going to wait and see what happens. But again, what is really concerning, what really to watch is what's going on with First Republic. That's where a lot of the fear is, and then understand that a recession hasn't been priced in either. And so if we start getting true numbers, more recession-like numbers, tomorrow we have a lot of data too. Something you need to keep in mind. We do have GDP price index tomorrow. We got more jobless claims tomorrow, pending home sales, core PCE tomorrow, all at 8:30, all in the morning before 10 o'clock. Those are really going to matter leading up until Amazon. So, and again, if you get any kind of bank news, I really think First Republic, right, if they go to zero, they get bought out, that's right. There's a big reason why they deposit $30 billion into that bank to not give up, and it looks like it's going to give. And then at that point, what other kind of cascading events are you going to get that occur from that? So that's really what we're concerned about. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Again, the night is long, and like I said, anything can change any minute, every day, hour. Can change the complete dynamic of the market. So just be mindful of that. So we wait and we see, we manage risk, and we'll take it from there. So that being said, if you made this far, go ahead and drop a like. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.